For every Avello Airlines, for every Paul Weiss law firm and all the other law firms that did corrupt deals with Trump, for every corporation, like our parent company for another hot minute, Comcast, that wants to pay for Trump to take a literal wrecking ball, an excavator to the White House, those public-facing companies should know there's a cost in terms of their reputation with the American people. There may be a cost to their bottom line when they do things against American values, against the public interest, because they want to please Trump or buy him off or profit somehow from his authoritarian overthrow of our democracy. Protest may or may not move Donald Trump himself, although these people at Trump Tower in New York this weekend were doing their best to try to make sure that it does. But even if protest doesn't move Trump directly, it constrains his power by moving the public-facing, consumer-facing people and entities that he has to enlist in what he's trying to do. I, for example, will be quite surprised if Maryland's Democratic governor, Wes Moore, does not end up ripping up that state's contract with Avello Airlines, right? If he doesn't, he's going to be answering to Maryland voters about that forever. In Chicago, the protests and the community reaction against Trump's immigration agents in that city have taken on now almost an epic scale. Before President Trump bulldozed a third of the White House last week, he had already paved over one of its most beautiful and iconic places, the White House Rose Garden. This summer, President Trump poured concrete over the Rose Garden at the White House in order to create this, what he calls the Rose Garden Club. It's basically a fast food restaurant patio with garish yellow umbrellas he had shipped up from his house in Florida to make it look like the assistant manager hasn't arrived yet to really set the place up. Look at that. That used to be the Rose Garden. Destroying the White House Rose Garden, literally paving it, cost nearly $2 million. And then the excavator showed up. Last week, in tearing down the historic East Wing of the White House, Trump destroyed not just the East Wing, but also a second historic garden, the Jacqueline Kennedy Garden, which, despite the name, was not designed by Jackie Kennedy. The garden was named in Mrs. Kennedy's honor, but it was designed by her friend, the legendary gardener, Bunny Mellon. B-U-N-N-Y, Bunny is her first name, Bunny Mellon. You can actually just barely make her out in the background of this photo from the time, Mrs. Mellon. Bunny had married into the Mellon family's industrial and banking fortune. Through her friendship with the Kennedys, she ended up designing both the White House Rose Garden, which Trump paved, and the absolutely lovely Jackie Kennedy Garden with its magnolias and its slow-growing, painstakingly cultivated hollies. But that garden is also now gone, bulldozed by Donald Trump, destroyed to make room for Trump's new Mar-a-Lago-style ballroom, which Trump says will cost somewhere between $200 and $350 million, money he has apparently raised from private donors. The current American president has decided to never mind Congress and the power of the purse that is laid out in the Constitution. When he wants money for something, he just finds another purse somewhere. Continues building his multi-hundred million dollar ballroom while the government is shut down and Americans line up at food banks in droves. Trump says this ballroom will be paid for by donors, including companies like, for now at least, our parent company, Comcast. MSNBC has asked the White House and has asked Comcast exactly how much Comcast has donated to this project. So far, we can't get an answer, but we'll keep asking. If we do get an answer, we'll let you know.
Tonight, new details on Trump's brazen desecration of the People's House, the White House. The Wall Street Journal reporting that he fast-tracked the demolition of the East Wing by firing 3 Biden-appointed members of a 12-person planning committee. Quote, installing his own panel of loyalists, including senior White House officials, giving Republicans control of a little-known body with outsized influence, over the White House complex. Now, that happened way back in July, around the time Trump falsely promised that the historic East Wing wouldn't come down.
With the current building, it'll be near it, but not touching it, and pays total respect to the existing building, which I'm the biggest fan of. It's my favorite place. I love it. We determined that after really a tremendous amount of study with some of the best architects in the world, we determined that really knocking it down, trying to use a little section, the East Wing was not much. In order to do it properly, we had to take down the existing structure.
Trump's $300 million construction project has become his obsession. Journal reporting, quote, he is involved with every aspect of planning. Companies have brought product samples to the Oval Office for Trump to review, and he has kept materials in the dining room off the Oval as he weighs design choices. It's clear Trump sees the White House as his personal property and not the people's house that we pay for with our taxes. Democrats have been slamming Trump for this over the weekend.
They're literally not just taking a wrecking ball to the White House, they're taking a wrecking ball to our very values.
That house doesn't belong to him, New York. It belongs to us. It belongs to the people of this country.
What the oligarchs fear, what they fear is the people will start understanding that this country belongs to us, not them.
Trump's authoritarianism goes hand in hand with greed and selling the U.S. presidency to the highest bidder. This weekend, hosting the ruler of Qatar on Air Force One, a man who gifted Trump that controversial new plane, as Trump commits to building a $5.5 billion golf course in Qatar. This just days after Trump accepted a legally dubious $130 million gift from a reclusive American billionaire and Trump backer. Trump claims this money will be used to pay troops during his government shutdown, but as the New York Times points out, it would only come out to about $100 per service member. Joining me now is Ambassador Norm Eisen, co-founder of The Contrarian on Substack. He was the top ethics lawyer for Barack Obama, founder and executive chair of Democracy Defenders Fund, and also co-founded CREW, Citizens for Responsibility and Ethics in Washington. Norm, thank you so much for joining us this evening. I want to start with this $130 million to the military. When I first heard that story, first off, it seems so bizarre to me because it's not a private army. I don't ever remember seeing service members out washing cars in the driveway to raise funds. So I don't know how someone can give that kind of money. Don't just tell us the ethical implications of this, but how is this money going to be used? Can it just be thrown in with our tax money? Like, what is the background of this and how could it actually be distributed?
Jason, I never would have allowed a private individual to pay the salaries of military members, because whenever people write checks, large ones, like for $130 million, that comes with strings attached. And Donald Trump has put the government up for sale to the high bidder. And that idea, another reason I wouldn't have allowed it when I was giving ethics advice in the White House, was because the law has standards that are breached by this payment. If the military cannot be paid by Congress, you can't do an end around, and the law says so. No end arounds to have a private individual pay. Moreover, the Pentagon is using its gift authority, but you can only use the statutory gift.
That's what sort of hit me about this. And I want to show you this list right now. Bernie Sanders put up a tweet recently on corporate tax breaks and the ballroom donations.
So Trump is furious today because the scheme around the ballroom's been exposed. The reason he did it so randomly, right? So randomly, is because he wanted to hide what he was doing. He wanted to hide what he was doing and how he was doing it. Because not only is he's trying to build a ballroom, it's an ego thing. Yeah, okay, I get it. But he's also apparently giving money to his donors. This is a way of him effectively funding them, right? I know it's like, oh, it's going to be funded through private money. but effectively who he allowed to build it and demolish it, it's another avenue for a big slush fund, right? He can do it. Maybe his company ends up doing it. I don't know, right? But maybe one of his donors has a demolition company, or these sorts of things kind of cook up. And it's being exposed. But it's also creating conflict because some other Trump donors, apparently, it's hurting their legacy and whatnot. And other Trump allies. This is just such an epitomization of Trumpism. Totally. A man who has no regard for history, a man who has no regard for democracy, a man who has no regard for taste, or anything of that sort. Because again, in comparison to launching a coup attempt, in comparison to having his thugs just snatch people up on the street, in comparison to a tariff policy that's causing billions in damages and threatening neighboring countries. Yes, some walls probably don't have as much meaning, right? We can probably agree. The ballroom isn't as important as those things. We agree. But the ballroom is more important than the ballroom. The White House is a symbol of America. And to just tear down a significant portion, some are saying a third of it, and he's just doing it without any approval, without any consultation, without any thought, showcases that he would demolish a third of America just to feed his own ego. At least a third.